Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome everyone to today's discussion to continue studying from the book The Words. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. I will briefly kind of summarize essentially just the main topic of these words that we have been reading, or this text that we have been reading so far, and mainly to try to kind of gear the discussion towards the next paragraphs that we haven't read yet. But very briefly, what I understood essentially from this whole section is that the author is trying to in a way show us or reveal to us why the Quran is elevated, in the sense that we hear the concept of miraculousness in the Quran, but what does it really mean for us? Like, what does it really mean? How can we interpret the verses in a way that we can understand them, but at the same time try to dissipate some of the beliefs or the concepts that are kind of widespread across. So it's kind of in a way teaching us how to essentially address our beliefs in a reasonable way, in a way that makes sense for our human qualities, for our humanity, and in a way that kind of sits well with us. At the same time, try to dissipate any of the objections that we hear, and try to see why the Quran is actually, well, test first whether the Quran is really miraculous or not for ourselves, and try to see the arguments that are presented, and really, like, at least to me, what it comes down to is that I live in this world, I'm interacting with other human beings, I'm observing this universe, and I'm observing how it works and how orderly it is, either in its in the inanimate objects, but also like our behaviors and interactions with each other as human beings, and interactions with other living beings as well. So this is really like it's a wonderful thing. It's a very it's just observing and being aware of this fact is essentially a miracle, and without having a way to make sense of it, in a sense that you have these things that are full of meaning, and without having a way for us to kind of decipher these meanings, it becomes meaningless. And I think, at least for me, this is where I feel I appreciated essentially what we've been reading so far, because it really kind of show you how to read the book of the universe via the Quran, essentially via the if one can call it that way, essentially the translator of the book of the universe, or it's the key for kind of understanding the book of the universe, in the sense that my existence is not meaningless. My existence has a purpose, and live according to this belief. And the interesting part, at least from reading the previous paragraphs, is that like at every level you kind of extract some meaning and some understanding, and it doesn't matter what your level is, you will be able, or a person will be able to kind of extract some meaning that can relate to his or her life. So at least for me, these sections around why the Quran is miraculous and kind of reading through the verses and trying to interpret them has been very very satisfying for me. So with this kind of brief intro, I propose that we kind of proceed with where we left off. So I believe we stopped at this verse. So I'm just going to read the English first, and then the Arabic version of it, and then we can read the commentary, and then we can kind of open it for discussion. So this verse is taken from Quran 52:43, and it goes as follows: or have they a God other than God? exalted is God, far above the things they associate with him. So the Arabic version of it. أم لهم إله غير الله سبحان الله عما يشركون. Or have they a God other than God? Exalted is God, far above the things they associate with him. Or, like the Magians, who imagined two separate gods called the creator of good and the creator of evil. Or, like the idolaters and worshippers of causes, who attribute a sort of godhead to different causes and imagine each of them to be a source of support for them. Do they rely on other gods and gods and contest you? Do they consider themselves free of any need of you? That means they have become blind and do not see the perfect order and flawless harmony throughout the universe, which is as clear as day. For in accordance with the decree, were there gods other than God in the heavens and the earth, there surely would have been a confusion in both. And this is from Quran 21:22. And let me just read the Arabic version for you. So this is 21:22. لو كان فيهما آلهة إلا الله لفسدتا فسبحان الله رب العرش عما يصفون. If there are two headmen in a village, or two governors in a town, or two kings in a country, order is turned upside down and harmony spoiled. But from a fly's wing to the lamps in the heavens, such a fine order has been observed that it leaves not so much space as a fly's wing for partners to be. Associated with God, since the above act in a manner so opposed to reason, wisdom, feeling, and what is obvious, don't let their lies put you off proclaiming the message. So I'm going to stop here and discuss these two verses first, because I feel the next paragraph kind of moves on to a different topic. So let me just go back to the previous page. Okay, so I think like focusing on this first verse, trying to read it again. So, or have they a God other than God? Exalted is God, far above the things they associate with him. In the commentary, just to kind of start the discussion and kick it off, and of course, give you the floor kind of to help me understand this verse better. So it's quite interesting that the author started with this particular group that he mentions. They imagine that there are two separate gods called the creator of good and the one of evil. I actually wanted to pause here because this is something I recently was discussing with a friend, and this topic came up of why some people essentially why do you think people needed to kind of separate Godhead in the sense that having a creator for good and a creator for evil. So I would be quite curious to hear your thoughts on this before we kind of dig deeper into this verse. But this is something that attracted my attention right away, is why there is a creator of good and creator of evil. Is there a problem reconciliating the concept of evil? That's why maybe they have kind of created these two entities for it. And then we kind of and I hope we can then discuss kind of how it relates back to the verse. So at this stage, I wanted to kind of ask you if you can chime in. So if anyone is interested to kind of pitch in his or her ideas on kind of this first sentence, I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts on it. So yeah, just raise your hand if you'd like to comment on this. Yeah. Go ahead, brother Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. I joined a little bit late. Your introduction, I was able to catch the last portion of it. Just to kind of a disclaimer, your question is to me an excellent question, and I think that these verses and a comment on it makes me feel that like there are mainly two ways of me relating or experiencing the existence, and I call them like liking and disliking. And dislike, it sounds very simple, but it includes like the condition of vulnerability, feeling my inadequateness in some cases, in some situations, and actually maybe it's part of my reality that there's always a constant change, and I need to kind of adapt to it, and I need to make sense of it. So it puts me in a condition of that kind of condition. I don't know what to call it. And I think this in finding meaning in these conditions, in these situations, I am maybe because of my, the way I am, I live so far, the way I made choices within the society, with the alongside with the choices of the others. I am more, I would like to see the things in the good way, but at the same time, there are things that I don't like to be, I don't like to experience. And I think in having these two ways of experiences result in some kind of the bad things and good things, and therefore good things coming from, or likable things coming from the creator of the universe, but the bad things are kind of the defects of the creation. Some kind of understanding appears, and then I'm not able to relate myself with health, or with the experiences that are dislikable to me, to the source of my existence. I don't have ways to communicate back to or benefit from them as a wise, as coming from an all-wise creator. I think these verses are talking to me in these manners, in reminding me these things, and definitely with the comment of the author Nursi. I think, these are the things come to my mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It makes a lot of sense to me what you said, in the sense that yes, there is there is an order in the universe that gives me essentially comfort, and it gives me a sense of me seeing the order, and me seeing the mercy, and me seeing like how this universe is organized. Me attributing it to the creator becomes kind of a necessity to me. And your comments related to the what's essentially is not according to my preference, or what does not agree with my expectations, me seeing it essentially as evil, I am aware that this is a very, it's a sensitive topic, but also a difficult point to understand, or at least to explain, in the sense to maybe this case, I have had the experience, and I'm sure others have as well, having this experience of essentially having the difficulty to explain how should we understand the existence of evil in the world in the context of having a merciful creator where everything that is being done has a meaning and has a purpose in itself. And so what you shared kind of so it definitely made sense. I wanted to kind of maybe probe a bit further and try to say and try to kind of get a bit of a clearer understanding of this point. Is evil coming only from my actions, in the sense that I have free will, so I choose, and my wrong choices may lead to like negative results that do not essentially agree with my expectations. Therefore, I am the only one to blame for its existence. Essentially, I have a knife, I cut myself. Well, the knife itself is not good or bad, but my usage of the knife and me cutting myself is what's creating essentially the bad like outcome that I got. So yeah, I would be curious to see if anyone has any other kind of angles to try to kind of solve this problem, or at least shed some lights on it, because I would be very, very curious to know what others think about it. Okay, well, while you think about this problem, I mean, I don't have per se a clear solution for it, so that's why I'm soliciting kind of your ideas and thoughts. I will move to the next. Brother Atiq, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the distinction between good and evil might actually be like a false dichotomy. I'm not sure evil actually exists. I can give an example. Like maybe we can say a tree, a fruit-bearing tree grows a fruit, and we say, oh wow, this fruit is produced. It's a good thing. Right now we can have sustenance, but maybe the fruit withers away and dies, and we can say that's evil. Oh no, the sustenance has been taken away. But I think, I don't know if that necessarily is evil. I think that could just be a lack of goodness, something like that. I think that the real causes are our understanding of what evil is, right? As we were, I guess, saying before, it's like based on our subjective knowledge and how we interpret things and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Atiq. This I like the point that you said. It may be a false dichotomy in the sense that this separation, well, the separation of good and evil is mainly according to our expectation and according to what we see. And yeah, so this is definitely is kind of helping me understand better. Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan, everyone who shared their opinions so far. So the author is talking about, like with these ayahs, talking about how Quran gives some arguments, or how it deals with different kinds of disbelief, different sources of disbelief. Why people could have been denying the message in Quran. And as one of these reasons, or one of these, let's say, sources of ideology, now we are studying the possibility that people think, or we think from time to time, or maybe whole our lives, all our lives, that there are gods other than God, that we attribute or associate things with God. Maybe that's the reason Quran says. Is that so? But don't you see, then he gives the answer, response, don't you see the God, the creator of the universe, is exalted. He's above everything that you associate with him. So if you look at the universe, Quran says, you will realize that whatever you're trying to associate with God, or whatever you're trying to raise to the rank of godship, you will realize that this thing that you're trying to attribute godness cannot fit, wouldn't be fit for this rank. What you observe in the universe would require something above what you take as God. So for instance, I become sick and I say, oh yeah, it's because of some bacteria. And Quran says, but your sickness is above this bacteria. Exalted the one who gave you sickness, he is above everything that you associated with him. In this case, the bacteria. And then a beloved one dies, and I say, oh, she died out of cancer. Then Quran says, but this death, the experience you are having, all these feelings, all these, the things that you see, the body is decaying. The life was there, now it's not there. There's a choice, there's like a switch was turned off. And whatever you are experiencing as a whole, not only just individual, the aspect of it, but the whole experience is above the cancer. Everything the experience in life, if you try to explain it, whatever you choose for the explanation, the source of this experience, the real source of this experience, will be above the explanation you gave. So your explanation will not suffice. That's one thing. The other thing, now Quran is using these, the questioning and responding to deal with certain ideologies who may, or certain, the state of a human being who may denying Quran, and says, maybe, author says, maybe, like from these verses, what I understood, author says, is that maybe people denying the message in Quran and the messenger who brought forth the message, denying it maybe because when they look at the universe, they don't see how everything, good or bad, how everything, divine or evil, whatever names you give, how everything points to the same source. Maybe they don't see it. Maybe they see these demarcate, like they see these separated, or the universe which is divided into sections. They see this chaos. They see how everything, fight to each other. And then they cannot come up with an explanation. They say everything is meaningless. And they don't even think they need a guidance, as author says. Do they think, they're free of need of you? They cannot even accept, or I cannot even accept the fact that I need guidance to make sense of all these, because from the beginning I say, it doesn't make any sense. And in a universe in which nothing makes sense, there's no guidance. So in such a mindset, I think author says, which is driven by his understanding of Quran, author says, when we see life as separated, as divided into parts, sections, compartments, when I see myself as divided into compartments, you will lose the sense of guidance. Because guidance is there to unite things, to combine things so that they will make sense together. But when I lose the understanding, the notion of sense, when I lose the idea that the things come together and give me a bigger picture together, and guidance reveals this big picture. When I lose this sense, this understanding, the guidance is not there anymore. I don't even expect guidance to arrive. That's all. I already talked a lot. I apologize. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you very much, Brother Birkan. I think this kind of helped me also recenter the discussion around the point that is important and that we should focus on. Thank you very much. This is indeed important. Basically separating parts of like what we observe and what we experience, and kind of having it isolated from the source, essentially puts us in kind of a fight between these different. Essentially, it's a conflict that gets set up where you have all these different forces that are kind of all pulling us in different directions. And by that kind of like moving towards what the rest of the paragraph is talking about is that attributing essentially everything to the causes themselves really kind of severes our connection with with essentially our source, in the sense that now I am attributing my happiness to the thing that gives me happiness right away, that I see it. Once that seemingly or that apparent source is no longer there, then I am miserable because I have attributed the source of my happiness, let's say, coming from the thing itself. And we can play this analogy or replay this analogy throughout. I see a beauty coming from a flower, that flower dies, beauty is gone, and so on. So something that has that gives me essentially, ultimately for me, what it comes, where this line of reasoning leads to is that I exist in this world, I observe the order, and I can't attribute the order to anything. Therefore, my existence becomes meaningless, in the sense that if I isolate it from its source, or if I isolate it from the source of existence that is sustaining everything, then in a way my world enters into a chaos where I can't make sense of it anymore. Essentially, then you have all these kind of forces kind of fighting each other, and it creates essentially lots of conflicts within me. I like reading through the text, I like this cause and effect concept that the author refers to quite often. Essentially, all the things that we see cannot explain their existence we do observe this flawless harmony throughout the universe. And it's important to kind of note that any part of it is really intertwined and interrelated with everything else. So if one cannot see this perfect order, essentially, if one cannot see this harmony throughout, then really, like, one becomes kind of lost in finding meaning and trying to decipher. Earlier I was saying, trying to translate what this meaning, this word means to me, and kind of this is where the strength of this verse becomes more clear to me. It's asking, okay, who are your gods other than the one? And it becomes like the answer to that becomes, to me, it's like nothing. Like really, like there is nothing that can explain to me how this order exists, how my life is proceeding, and so on. So I kind of, yeah. So the comments so far, and also reading through the text, kind of brings this point a bit, or makes this point a bit clearer to me as far as understanding the verse that we read earlier above. Let me pause here and see if anyone else would like to contribute to kind of help us all understand this paragraph. Yeah, go ahead, Aisha Noor and Abdul Rahman.
Assalamu alaikum. I had a very short comment. This problem of evil, it's not an easy problem to solve. It's, you might solve it in your head, but then something might happen and you might have to go over it daily. It's not something simple. And I just wanted to emphasize something I saw in this paragraph. I see Nursi is, instead of going into the depth about, evil is actually in your choices, it's maybe in how you're using yourself, the evil is not in the creation. He doesn't go into this really in-depth explanation or this, argument. He puts in front of you this: do you not see the perfect order and flawless harmony throughout the universe? Like, you're saying there's a creator of good, there's a creator of evil, but do you not see the perfect order and flawless harmony that's throughout the universe? And as you said, everything is so intertwined. You start from this narrow aspect of, right now, I stub my toe, this is evil, but do you not see the harmony of the universe where, this stubbing my toe, it's not unrelated to everything else. It can't be separated. You can't separate the creator of a car crash from the creator of a baby. One you love and one you don't love, but they can't have two different creators because everything is so intertwined. Everything is so together. So like Nursi, he just presents this, I guess, the foundation of where you need to begin thinking whenever you approach this idea of the evil out there, or the separate creation of evil. Like, you need to start from this foundation of, okay, there is this harmony that I witness in this universe. And then as you build up on this, as you take further steps and you start understanding like how there's a pattern of creation and how like you're observing the world, and then eventually maybe you can start solving these other questions that you might arise. I just want to like just put like emphasize, or just like say, I thought it was interesting how Nursi presented that as like the argument, the evidence.
Thank you, Brother Abdurrahman. It makes a lot of sense in the sense that we should, or at least what we are being taught is take a step back and then analyze events within their context, rather than kind of isolate any event and try to kind of understand in and of itself. So definitely taking this step back, looking at understanding our position in this world, our createdness, and then the order that we see, and so on. Then analyzing any event that may happen, good or bad, within the framework of essentially having an understanding that this world is being created and being managed. So thank you for making that comment. It helped me understand better. Brother Yusuf.
So as if this verse is also establishing a connection with ascribing partners to the creator, or associating partners to the creator, and abstaining from the messenger. So as if I am more, or let me put it this way, to the extent that I have issues with ascribing partners to the creator, I will be more dismissive towards the messenger. And practically, what does that mean? So to the extent that I start ascribing or seeing bad as bad and good as good, which means they're inherently having some sort of a value in and of themselves, I am also considering myself to be valuable in and of myself. So in a sense, I myself become sort of a god, a mini god sort of a thing. So these are all the things that makes me closed to outside. So somebody is going to come and tell me what truth is. I wouldn't buy it because I myself am valuable. I myself am smart, so on and so forth. So to the extent that I start ascribing values to the things themselves, I'm going to start staying away from a messenger who comes and tells me that here's the truth. And the author is now telling me, reminding me of how to fix this problem in the first place. Says that, don't you see the order in the existence out there? Is the order being done by itself? Or how doesn't this tell you that the orderer is above and beyond every single part of that order itself? So how come that you are attributing things to themselves? Because likewise, and if I apply the same thing to myself, how come you are attributing you yourself being part of the order, attributing those qualities to yourself? If I don't solve that problem there, or at least if I don't start questioning the problem there, I would never end up with the need to ask the messenger, because I already start getting some false gods. And maybe I will say, well, you claim you have truth? Yeah, science have truth, or I know it, my father knows it, or my wife knows it, I guess more. So then, yeah, this is what ends up being. This is where then my world starts getting those good and bad, sort of a dichotomy will start happening, and there's no escape from that. But it all starts with ascribing partners to the creator. As I start giving deities or godly qualities, which means qualities belonging to things themselves, then I will start falling into this good and bad problem, which will lead me to abstaining from the messenger. How to break the chain? Go back to the very beginning. Do you really think that things have those qualities by themselves? Do you ascribe partners to the one creator, which intuitively you already feel that there must be a one creator, but in addition to him, you start ascribing partners or starting to think things themselves are also the source of their own qualities? Then there is no way I can escape from that problem. So to fix the problem, go and fix that understanding. How am I going to understand it? Check the order. The order in the existence will tell you that there's this perfect harmony, and then pieces of the harmony cannot be the source of harmony because the order is above and beyond all of that.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. It makes we are kind of inching towards understanding, at least having a partial understanding of this. So Jazakallah. I think what I took away is essentially kind of reiterating the framework in which we should operate. Should start from understanding our position in this world as far as our experience is concerned, from what we observe. That this universe is ordered, that there is a purpose for every single thing that happens in this universe, and as a consequence, anything that I want to analyze, any events that I would like to analyze and address, they have to be within this framework or this context. It's like, at least the simple example that I can think of at the moment is that you have a house that fits a purpose. It's well ordered. It's every single, let's say, room, every single has a certain function, and then somebody comes in and only look, let's say, at a trash can in that house, and then kind of just focus their attention, well, why there is a trash can here, and really, like, if one can only like look at that one thing and isolate it from everything else in that room or that house, then really, like, there is no way for the person to kind of understand why that trash can is in this house. This is maybe a simplistic example, but what I'm trying to say is that trying to understand events in this world with a certain attitude or certain framework that first looks at how this world is, and it kind of positions ourselves into seeing this our kind of our relationship or location in this universe vis-a-vis everything else that happens. And in that sense, one can clearly see that there is there is order, and one has to focus on that. And I feel like at least the verse that we read, and then the paragraph that we kind of studied now addresses this point and brings it home for me, at least. So the next verse is essentially continuation. So if there is, just we'll pause a second here to see if there is anyone that would like to comment on this first verse / paragraph before we move on. Okay, so then this next verse is essentially a continuation. It says, okay, if there is, so you say that you are attributing properties and qualities to deities, to the things themselves, then ask these things essentially to what would happen if you really had multiple kind of heads or multiple free agents that have kind of the same authority or power, or whatever you'd like to call it. How will the universe work in that sense? Is that reasonable? Do you expect that the order that you see as you see it would happen if you had let alone like another deity, even if it was one element of this universe, if it is acting on its own behalf, do you think really that the order and the balance that we observe will exist? And if anybody that has studied this universe, anybody that has paid any attention to it, doesn't have to be like sciences, it just like looking at it from as a human being experiencing it, you can see clearly that there is a harmony that cannot be explained by having multiple authorities, and this is kind of what this verse is addressing. Let me just read it again. Were there gods other than God in the heavens and the earth? There surely would have been confusion in both. We know for a fact that changing properties of one element of this universe will collapse the order as we see it, and just at least for me, knowing this fact essentially empowers me to kind of feel confident into the belief, or my belief, that that this order cannot come from the elements. I cannot attribute the order of this universe as I see it to its constituents, to its parts. It's essentially an impossibility for me. So this is only speaking about, even if it is just one particle, let alone all elements, all parts of this world, from the billions of galaxy clusters to the subatomic world, and then all this and everything in between, essentially all these interactions that are happening just whoever looks at the world in a essentially unbiased way, in a objective way, will see that this order cannot exist from this universe, cannot exist by itself. These agents are clearly don't have any will, they don't have any choice, they don't have any power. You can substitute one with the other, and there is really, like, they all follow the same order, they are all following the same prescriptions and the same attitudes. So that's why this at least reading this verse resonates with me, in the sense that really, if we just assume that one particle acts on its own, then we know for a fact that that particle is interacting with everything else in the universe. And if it just kind of decided to do something different, then the whole order kind of collapses as we see it. And this is essentially, I mean, it's very hard to argue against it. I can't see how I can argue against it. But anyway, let me pause here and hear your thoughts as well on this continuation for this paragraph. Let me give you a second here. Go ahead, Brother Yusuf.
I mean, it might be clear to everyone, but just in case, when such a verse gets mentioned, I guess an automatic question that might rise is, how about if both creators perfectly agree with each other, sort of a thing? I don't know if this sort of a question is relevant within that group, but just wanted to voice it up if anybody is concerned about such a question. If not, I guess we can move forward.
I would be interested in your thoughts on that.
So yeah, I mean, this was intuitively, of course, it doesn't make any sense. What the author says in here is quite visible. Like, I guess within a single house, everybody can check their parents, husband and wife, not to mention their own families, like their own spouses. But yeah, like this, what's being mentioned in here is practically visible. But this might sound like, well, but here we are talking about some as of anthropomorphizing, like those are, yeah, limited humans. This is why they are arguing with each other. They are all equally dumb, let's say. This is why they are fighting over something. But if they were more advanced humans, there would be less of a fight. Just look at the parts of the world where there is less education, they fight more. If they're more educated, like some European countries, which are every year being declared as the most happiest countries and whatnot. Also, yeah, as you are more educated, you're going to fight less, so on and so forth. So ideally, if you increase the knowledge, then what's wrong that they are going to be perfectly get on well with each other? Would be the argument, I guess. But something that I guess learned from that author himself is, so in that setup, still we are imagining some common truth that two people would agree upon. So there is a, if you like, layout of what is right, what is wrong already established out there. And those two people are learning of the constraints and then saying that, yeah, this would be the optimal. The other says, yeah, okay, I agree. That seems the most reasonable thing to do. Then they agree upon this common truth. But the assumption in here is the truth is already laid out, or if you like, rules are already set. So those people are learning those rules and acting optimally according to that set of rules. But when you say things are the rulers themselves, there is no common rule. What sort of a agreement we are talking about? So even, I mean, this explanation, I know it sounds very theoretical, but even at that level, there is no common ground that you can talk about. There's nothing common because there is no knowledge common. Nothing is common in here. This is why what is being suggested in here is also logically impossible, not only intuitively impossible. Yeah, everybody from their intuition very well know that there cannot be two rulers, within an order. But even if we take it one step further, we can say that logically, there is no way that we would observe any order, because there wouldn't be any agreed upon order as long as there are two absolute entities. So sorry for that overly technical mumbo jumbo.
No, thank you, brother Yusuf, for clarifying. It made lots of sense to me, in the sense that, yeah, like it's to kind of presume that two entities will agree on actions, in a sense, means that there is some common truth, and it's an interesting point that this quickly, at least in my mind, quickly raises up essentially a lot of difficulty to have in this situation kind of manifest, as far as the practical experience of me observing the world is concerned. It is impractical, but also it is, as you mentioned, it is kind of even theoretically impossible, and yeah, so it does make it does make sense to me. I don't know if others would like to kind of comment on these points or other. Let me give you a minute to kind of react. Okay, so if there isn't any comment, let's read further then. I think such a fine order has been observed that it leaves not so much space as a fly's wing for partners to be associated with God. Since the above act in a manner so opposed to reason, wisdom, feeling, and what is obvious, don't let their lies put you off proclaiming the message. I actually, just before kind of we read on, if there is anyone that has maybe like some, we've all kind of been speaking in the same direction and kind of agreeing with each other. I don't know if there are any questions or maybe like oppositions, or at least different ways of looking at what we've been saying. Or concerns that are related. I would be happy to hear them, and maybe we can try to kind of discuss them as well. So let me just give you kind of a minute to kind of react to this before I read further. Okay. Seems not. So let me then proceed with the next paragraph. Thus, of the hundreds of jewels of these verses, which constitute a series of truths, we have briefly explained only a single jewel of the Quran's manner of exposition in the category of giving to understand and silencing in argument. Given to understand, silencing the argument. Okay. If I had the power and shown a few more jewels, you too would have said these verses are a miracle just on their own. But the Quran's manner of exposition in making understood and instruction is so wonderful, subtle, and fluent that the most simple, ordinary person easily comprehends a most profound truth from the way it explains it. Yes, the Quran of miraculous exposition simply and clearly teaches most abstruse truths in a way that caresses the view of people in general and neither hurts their feelings nor irritates their minds nor tires them. Just as when speaking with a child, childish words are used in the same way, the Quranic styles come down to the level of those it addresses, called in the terminology of the Quran of theology, called in the terminology of the scholars of theology, divine how do you say this word? Condescension to the mind of man. It addresses them in that way. through comparisons in the form of allegories. It makes an illiterate, common person understand abstruse divine truths and dominical mysteries, which the minds of the most learned philosopher cannot rise to. So this is kind of a summary, kind of trying to conclude this part of the text or this section that we've been reading, and essentially, kind of in summary, is that the Quran, like at least by kind of studying it and looking at these verses, it kind of stands on its own as speaking to a human being. It doesn't matter what level that person is. It can be an intellectual person, it can be a person that does not learned or does not. You don't have to be like, you don't have to have any background to kind of look at one's humanity and attitude and kind of resonate with what the Quran is saying. So that's kind of so it's pretty. It's a if anything, if the Quran needs to speak to me as a human being, it will speak to me, or it will at it doesn't matter what level I am at. I will be, or in principle, I should be able to extract the message out of it, the kind of key to understand my existence out of it at every level. So that's a very important point, especially if we say that the Quran is the key to understanding the universe, or it's the word of the Creator to me. So if that is the case, then anybody should be able to understand and extract meaning from it. So I feel this is kind of what I took away from reading this paragraph, that kind of starts summarizing what we've been discussing throughout these verses so far. I would be interested to hear your thoughts as well on kind of this concept. I see a hand. Yeah, Brother Muhammad, please go ahead.
What I understand from this comment, the last paragraph you read especially, is that it seems like the value of the Quran is its guidance, and if the guidance is not there for me, so what is guidance? It's definitely personal, and it depends on my problem, and it must be related to meaning of my life. These are by definition, but it is very personal, and if I don't get that guidance, then there is nothing that is kind of useful for me in this message, because if my problem is not being solved, then why am I'm going to have any relationship with it? So in that sense, Quran is supposed to be the word of my Creator, is supposed to be addressing every situation of me that is being created by Himself, and in my experiences, and also the experiences of every person in every age. That I feel that's really miraculous, and but it's kind of conditional. That's what I am getting, although it's not mentioned in this paragraph. But it depends on my problem. There has to be a problem. I feel that because the guidance, if something, a message is offering itself to me as a guidance, then I have to have a problem, or I have to have a problem so that I will look for a guidance. So in that sense, I think this paragraph comes with the background of understanding of the author, that we are all some shape or form having, by design, having, like, we call them problems, but they are a door, a stepping stone into something meaningful. That must be the condition from my end, so that I will communicate with the guidance of the creator of this human situation.
Thank you, Brother Muhammad, for clarifying this point. The yeah, like when I think about it, if I was put in this world, observing all this order and observing the meaning that exists, or at least everything that is in this world seems to be following or an order and seems to be kind of fulfilling a mission. So since the sun rises, you see like the whole kind of the universe is kind of following an order. Everything is essentially following its command. I mean, now it's almost spring. Like you can already see like life is coming back into like trees and like birds, and everything seems to have to have or to be having a command or to be having a mission that we can see. And looking at myself, if I was put in this world without guidance, as Brother Muhammad mentioned, I would be so confused. Why is there, like, I will see the order, but then I won't have a way to decipher it. It will be just as there is order, it will be kind of very um, confusing to me, but also essentially creates a real contradiction in me, like not like seeing the order but not being able to kind of relate to it. And where the Quran comes in for me is this aspect of guidance to kind of answer my existential questions of why there is this order, who's the orderer, who I am, where I'm going, and these basic questions. So looking at the Quran from this lens is definitely something that makes more sense to me, in the sense that I can actually extract answers to my questions. It is a person, like every human being has to go through this process, and it's a personal journey for me to decipher these problems that I have in my life, and I do need guidance for it. So if the Quran provides it, so that's kind of why I can take it as the word of my creator, to me. I see another hand raised. Go ahead, Brother Yusuf.
I was questioning, why did author mention this paragraph in here? Because in the previous pages, he addressed maybe like the verses that he quoted, addressed maybe 10 or more fundamental ideologies that challenge the scripture, the message, the messenger. And for every single one of them, there was just a verse. And it is as if bringing a counter-argument with a single verse, single sentence. So which sounds maybe simplistic. So because if you think about it, maybe most probably, well, I'm pretty sure, not even probably, there are tons of people who are have written books about those arguments, defending those arguments, maybe did PhDs and whatnot, or even maybe some professors somewhere who is famous with just defending one of those ideologies. And Quran is just coming up with a single verse and speaking to common people and challenging those ideologies. So it might sound simplistic, especially in this day and age where being an expert is so much celebrated. If you are an expert of something, then you have the right to speak, and your word is going to be taken at face value just because you're an expert. So we are living in such an age, especially. But Quran is addressing those very fundamental human questions, but those fundamental questions are everybody's questions, and it's answering them in a way that everybody will understand. And this becomes especially interesting and also miraculous in and of itself, that all those experts, after this many years of expertise, are not able to communicate that message with a simple language, yet Quran does it in a way that even those experts cannot reach to that level of understanding. Forget about speaking about it, because understanding is one thing, then explaining that understanding is another level. It requires more of an expertise. Quran is explaining it in a so simple way that a common person, an illiterate person, unlettered person is going to understand it. And in this case, the messenger himself is the totally unlettered person. He is being taught by the Quran, and he himself becomes the teacher to other people with Quran. So in this sense, messenger himself is also being the first addressee of the Quran is miracle also, because he is, if you like, the first person to be the student of Quran, yet get the point very clearly. So just a second. So So yeah, in this sense, just the way that the Quran is very simply explaining those matters, it's not really, oh yeah, with a single sentence, you can never explain this. Come on, I don't believe in that. This would be our mindset in this day and age, because we think like those deep topics need to be explained using heavy words and abstract notions and a language which is dedicated for that, as I was trying to do with, for example, those, as I was trying to open up the why two gods cannot happen at the same time. Quran explains it in a very simple way, that if there were two, then there would be chaos. And you can intuitively understand what that means. You would know for a fact what that means. And this is really the point to convey the message. So just this very fact itself makes Quran miraculous.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf, for sharing. Yes, this is it's indeed a powerful point in the sense that you don't need an you don't need an authority, or you don't need to be an expert in a domain to understand or be able to answer or get guidance from the Quran. So anybody can. It doesn't matter when and where. The examples that are given are based on human experience. So anybody can relate to them in a way that is, it seems simple, but at the same time it's very profound. So it's always interesting to me to see how like I can read the verse and understand in a certain way, but then there are other people that read it, have their own dimensions, and it just seems endless in terms of the how everyone can interpret and extract meaning and answers, like personal answers for personal problems related to my existence and my position in this world. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else would like to kind of share thoughts on this kind of summary paragraph? Go ahead, Brother Birkan.
Jazakallah khairan. So about this part that even illiterate or uneducated person can understand. Let me read this sentence, if you don't mind. But the Quran's manners of exposition in making understood and instruction is so wonderful, subtle, and fluent that the most simple, ordinary person easily comprehends a most profound truth from the way it explains it. So this part, it sounds like it's just about the style of speaking. Like otherwise, the topic or the subject matter is so complicated. It's so intricate, and ordinary people wouldn't understand it normally. But Quran makes a perfect example, gives a perfect example, and use a childish language so that an ordinary people can understand what it is about, at least, right? So this is one way of reading it, but I think this is not the right way of reading it, because here it says ordinary people can comprehend it, can understand the topic. It's not like, for instance, Osman trying to teach us the particle physics, but none of us, I'm just, in hypothetical example, maybe some of us are expert, but let's assume none of us can understand particle physics, right? It's not our topic. Even if you spend, I don't know, 3 weeks with, let's say, Yusuf, the most Yusuf can understand is just very limited. But instead, Osman starts giving examples with oranges, apples, or the cake, right? The cupcake with some raisins, and talk about the atom models and so on and so forth. And then, heat each other, like two of them to each other, and shows how they, they put in the pieces and so on and so forth. And Yusuf says, "Oh yeah, okay, I understand." What it means in the just in the bigger scale. Well, can we say Yusuf understood the particle physics, at least the part that Osman explained? No, he just had an impression, or let's say he knows what Osman is working on in the very crude sense. But what we're talking about here, about Quran, it's something else. It's that the subject matter, it's profound, it's so important, but at the same time, it's so simple that a simple, ordinary man can understand when it is put in a proper form. An ordinary man's mind is enough to understand it. The subject matter is not complicated at all. If you think that what we are studying here is complicated, it means we are not able to convey it properly. It means we are not able to put it in the proper shape and form. Our exposition is terrible. But Quran's exposition is perfect in the sense that it does not complicate things. The subject matter is something that every human being can understand. Even when we give examples about the PhDs, professors, and so on and so forth, it shows that we are just following the trend of the mistake that the people does, disbelievers, let's say, does, or believers, that is, the topics that we are discussing they are really complicated. It's a philosophical matter. It's a scientific matter. Like, you have to prove something. You have to show that, its truthness through certain and complicated, sophisticated argumentations. But this is not true. What we are studying and what message of Quran, what the Quran conveys as a message, it's something that ordinary people can understand, because it's just a simple human question. Whether you have a PhD, whether you are a professor or you are a farmer, it's not even related, it's not even relevant. So yes, based on your expertise or what is given to you, you may go deeper. not because you better understand it, because you needed more explanation. Because your mind, like I'm talking to myself, because your mind was so closed, your heart was so rock-like, so hardened, that you needed a PhD to understand a simple fact. That you were so stupid that people had to explain it for long years and through all these books. Because you are stupid, not because you are more clever. I'm sorry for my frankness. It's, whenever I make it self-critic, I usually become so aggressive. So anyway, so like a professor or a PhD or whatever, an intellectual, quote unquote, having an argument against a belief, let's say, or against Quran, does not make it more sophisticated. It only shows that this person is really stupid. Like God created all these opportunities around him because he needed or she needed a lot. But even after these opportunities, he cannot understand a simple truth. So you having a better understanding of, let's say, the creation, or better understanding of the creator, because you are an engineer, I can look at the creation from an engineering perspective, or from a scientific perspective, or from an artist perspective. I have a better grasp. No, you have a worse grasp. You had the worst grasp. So to correct you, to teach you the single simple truth, God created all these educational paths in front of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand this simple truth. So what I'm trying to say, I think, like the way we start is usually that the truth or what is mentioned in Quran is so complicated. In actuality, actually, you need some deep, some philosophical sessions for a few years to understand it. This is the truth. But just to make an ordinary man happy as well, Quran uses simple language. That's the usual way I approach such explanations. But I think, at least nowadays, I started to think that this is not the case. I guess the truth is the subject matter is so simple. It's profound, it's important, it's more valuable than anything else, but it's simple, can be understood by an ordinary man. But some stupid people like myself cannot understand even this simple thing. So we had to go through all these educations, after which we started to grasp something, part of it. Again, sorry for my frankness. Jazakallah khairan for your understanding.
Thank you, Brother Birkan. I certainly related to what you said. It is a very fine point in the sense that matters related to belief, like this belief education, are not complicated, and I should be seeing them or presenting them to myself in a way that I can understand, and perhaps essentially making them accessible to me is at the end of the day what I aim to do essentially, and going through making these ideas a bit more complex or more is really not needed. The Quran as it stands is definitely accessible to me. Like I don't need an education. I don't need any. I just need to be frank with my feelings and my human experience and my human capacity to kind of comprehend and relate to. And in a way that I can internalize it. And so thank you for sharing these thoughts. I think they are very important. I know, so we are running out of time. So I will not read the next paragraph. So we leave it for next time so that we don't rush through it. These are all, reading this text needs diligence, and I think it's better served to leave it for next time. But any closing remarks from anyone before we close? Okay, if not, then thank you very much all for participating, being here, contributing, and sharing your thoughts and ideas. So we close. So سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله